This is Cashing Out on VSiN, the sports betting network.
All right, let's have some fun. It's time for Cashing Out with Joe Ceraulo, taking you through your Sunday night here on the program, wrapping up your weekend, starting your work week the best way possible. It was a loaded weekend, NBA playoffs, Stanley Cup playoffs, tons of great baseball. That's where we made most of our money this weekend. A lot of lopsided action in the NBA, some thrillers on the ice. We'll get to it all. We've got some great guests lined up for you here tonight that are going to help us drive this program. Our buddy Nick Whalen from over at RotoWire. You also catch him right here, Prop Points, weekdays 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern. He's going to join us in just about a half hour. In hour number 2, VSiN hockey expert Jonathan Davis is going to join the program as well as we gear up for a couple great Stanley Cup playoff games on Monday. Carolina-Washington, Game 4. Edmonton-Vegas, Game 4, road team has won each of the first 3. Oilers up 2-1 in that series. I might venture onto the ice and have a best bet in that Game 4 between the Oilers and the Knights. We're going to get to it all here on the program, but let's start with the game that just wrapped up. The Indiana Pacers absolutely taking it to the Cleveland Cavaliers with a stick. 129-109, and folks, the game was not as close as that final score would indicate. Indiana up 41 at the half, tied for the biggest halftime lead in postseason history, 80-39 against a Cleveland Cavaliers team that was at full strength. And we saw this full-strength Cavs team make me put my foot in my mouth on Friday and absolutely decimate Indiana on Friday on the road with a 20-point victory of their own. Darius Garland, welcome back. Evan Mobley, welcome back in a big way. DeAndre Hunter, how you doing? I mean, that Friday night game, you had both big men with nearly identical double-doubles. Mobley and Jarrett Allen just dominated the post. On the Indiana side, Siakam and Miles Turner had a combined 7 boards. Mobley and Allen went for 25 on Friday night. It was just pure dominance in the post. From the outside, Donovan Mitchell continued to dominate. I mean, he's had 40-plus game after 40-plus game this postseason. Hunter and Garland didn't exactly stuff the stat sheet, but their presence was felt. And it felt like after that Friday night game went final that the entire series might turn and shift in favor of the Cleveland Cavaliers. But they come out on Sunday just about as flat as you could from the start. I mean, Indiana, just like how Cleveland jumped out to that big first half lead on Friday, the Pacers wasted no time. 38-23 after 1. 42-16 in the second quarter. That's how we got to 80-39 after 24 minutes. And all that even with a Pacer getting ejected, Benedict Mathurin, who's given them some really meaningful minutes off the bench going back to last postseason. He played hero at times, that second round series against my Knicks. Mathurin with just the softest ejection and the absolute worst call you could imagine. I mean, I'm going to say shoves, right? The official said punch. I'm going to say he shoves Hunter with one hand, and then Hunter goes up to him, and just Mathurin totally defenseless. Now, look, I know what he was doing, right? He was playing the who, me type of role. We get it. He wasn't completely innocent, but Hunter just goes in there, rears back, full force, shoves him to the ground, and yet Mathurin's the one getting ejected? I mean, I thought VSiN's own JVT, who you can catch, of course, Money Moves, noon Eastern, weekdays now, I thought the JVT was 1,000% spot on when he tweeted out, give him a double tech and let's move the hell on. I'm paraphrasing. But that was exactly what should have gone down. Mathurin getting ejected. Them calling that a punch. Tell me you've never been in a fight before, ref, if you're going to call that a punch. That's about the softest. My 12-year-old brother hits harder than that. That's about the softest lame excuse for a punch I've ever seen. So you think maybe there's a chance now that ignites something. Mathurin's gone. Now, look, he's not Halliburton, right? He's not Indiana's best player by any means, but he's a key cog in what the Pacers have going on. You think he's gone, maybe Cleveland can rally. Cleveland had nothing. And then to make matters worse, they lose a guy of their own, not to ejection, but Donovan Mitchell with what they're calling an ankle injury. I mean, if Donovan Mitchell can't go Game 5, I'll even say if Donovan Mitchell can't go at 80% Game 5, they're toast. he's been putting up damn near 50 pieces in games that Cleveland's lost this series, in games where they've squandered massive leads. If they don't have Donovan Mitchell, 80, 85, maybe even they need him to be 100% just to have a chance. Now, I say 80, 85 because they are going home. They are healthy, Garland, Hunter, Mobley. So I do expect that Cleveland's going to take game 5. Am I willing to lay, 8.5 at open with them? I don't know. And we've seen a lot of the zigzag effect this postseason. We've seen a team outright lose one game, cover the next, so on and so forth. I don't know if I can lay 8 to 8.5, even though, we've seen back-to-back games land on 20-plus point blowouts. That just might be too steep, too big of a number for me to want to mess with, especially until we know more about Donovan Mitchell's status. But that is concerning, right? Only went 20 minutes out there. Not that starters for either team really went much more than 20 minutes. I think there was only one starter go 30 minutes. That was Andrew Nembhard. I mean, for the Pacers, this was reminiscent of Oklahoma City game 1 against Memphis, right? All right, starters played half the game. Let's get them out of there. I mean, the Pacers had starters logged 21, 22, 23 minutes out there. Siakam, Turner, Nesmith, none of them even played half the game because they didn't need to. They were up 41 at the break. And that's why, you lose by 20, but that's because Thomas Bryant is getting, 10 minutes, right? Shepard's getting 30 minutes off the bench. Obi Toppin, although Toppin gives him meaningful minutes, he was actually great off the bench. He had 20, and he did a lot of his damage early when they were building that, soon-to-be 41-point halftime lead. So the Indiana Pacers get one at home, pure dominance. Now they've got 3 tries to win one. I think the Cavs will get them game 5, but I think this is gearing up to be Indiana in 6. I mean, the Cleveland Cavaliers, I'll be damned if they come back from 3-1. This ain't the same Cavs team that did once come back from 3-1 in the NBA Finals. It's a much different Cleveland Cavaliers team, and I think your 1 seed in the Eastern Conference is absolutely toast. Over in the Western Conference, the Oklahoma City Thunder avoided an emergency. Could have had 2 1 seeds as of Sunday, as of today, down 3-1. But OKC ends up getting home with the win in Denver. They split. It's gone every other game thus far. And the Thunder relying on that defense heavily in the first and in the fourth quarters to do so. Third quarter, it looked like the Nuggets might have pulled away with this thing. After a terrible first quarter, how do you, if you're Oklahoma City, hold Denver to 8 points in the first quarter and not have a double-digit lead? I mean, that was, to me, maybe it's the early start time, right? I mean, this game was, 1:30 Mountain Time start, I believe. It was 12:30 out here. Maybe it was the early start time and Friday night. Both teams were exhausted. The overtime game, they leave it all out on the court. Maybe these guys were gassed because, to me, my impression of that 17-8 first quarter was not, wow, this is great, stellar, tough defense. No. My impression of that first quarter was these guys don't look like they're engaged. It wasn't great defense. It looked like just absolutely piss-poor shooting. And they were sleepwalking. Denver woke up faster than Oklahoma City did. Second and third quarter, Denver was, plus 15 in those 24 minutes of basketball. But OKC, what's so unique about this team is their ability to just flip a switch. Denver, to their credit, and the Denver Nuggets deserve a lot of credit for what they've done since firing Malone in this post-Malone era to go, 3-0 to close out the regular season, take down the Clippers in 7. Now they're neck and neck, tied 2-2 with OKC. By the way, remember before this series started when I believe it was a week ago, last Sunday, May 4th, when I pointed out the Nuggets series plus 2.5 play at plus 115, well, that's already a lock. It's 2-2. The series plus 2.5, meaning that Denver can either win the series, lose in 7, or lose in 6. Well, worst case scenario for Denver now is they lose in 6. So that series plus 2.5 play is already a locked and loaded guaranteed winner if you played it. I believe plus 1.5 was plus 230, meaning Denver could either win or lose in 7. And folks, I got news for you. I believe that's the direction we're heading. I believe that this is going to be a 7-game set. Maybe Oklahoma City is fed up and maybe they rattle off, 3 straight wins, 2 more after this game 4 win. but I see this one going back and forth. I think the Thunder take game 5. I think the Nuggets take game 6. A pissed off Jokic facing elimination at home, dressed like the Joker walking in. How do you bet against that? And then ultimately, I do believe Oklahoma City will close it out in 7. But game 7, it's hard to bet against the Nuggets. I don't care. The Thunder, there's no disputing that they're the better team, but it is hard to go against Jokic and this Nuggets team with their core and their experience against a young OKC squad in a game 7. I think that this could be the toughest task. I think it will be the toughest task that the Thunder face, even if they should advance. I don't think the conference finals would be anywhere near as difficult as this round, this matchup against the Denver Nuggets. Folks, this summer, go all in at Circa Las Vegas with the ultimate getaway package. Just $400 all in. That means you'll get a 2-night stay at Circa, a $100 dining credit, a $100 beverage credit, and your very own daybed at Stadium Swim, where the party never stops. All that for just $400, resort fees and taxes included. This limited time offer, valid for stays between May 26th, that's right around the corner, Memorial Day, and September 4th. Believe that's Labor Day, if I'm not mistaken. Don't miss out. Lock in your all-in summer package now at circalasvegas.com. You don't want to miss this, folks. It's as good a deal as any on the market right now. Up next, going to look at some NFL news and how the odds might react to Derek Carr's sudden retirement down in New Orleans. Kellen Moore inherited a dumpster fire. More cashing out with Joe Ceraulo up next.
Out here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
All right, Cashing Out continues with me, Joe Ceraulo, taking you through your Sunday night, fresh off a few postseason conclusions. The Pacers-Cavs game we were all over just a few minutes ago. Indiana with the 20-point drubbing of Cleveland on their home court. They'll head back to Cleveland now with a 3-1 lead. The Pacers, they'll have 3 chances, if needed, at the most, to wrap this thing up. How about the Florida Panthers over on the ice? Not in that series up. And that one, the home teams won every game. 2-2 there. Panthers, Maple Leafs, Toronto getting blanked. Now, trends this postseason would tell us back the Leafs on Wednesday, Game 5, they'll have a little time off to collect themselves here, a couple of days off between games 4 and 5. Home team has had a lot of success in that series, unlike a series that we'll get to shortly, a little later on. Edmonton, Vegas, road team, 3-0 that series. Go figure that one. The Oilers, just finally on Saturday, losing for the first time in 6 games. They had a 6-game win streak after falling down 0-2 to the Kings. Now they'll try to prevent themselves from falling victim to going up 2-0 and squandering a series like LA did against them round 1. But I don't think that's going to be the case with Edmonton. I think the Edmonton Oilers are going to be able to defend home ice just fine in this game 4. I actually don't hate the price. -130. I'm starting to see some -125s pop up. If you can get in on that, always shop around. Get your best price out there. But I think the Edmonton Oilers are going to make a statement in this game 4. Look, bad enough to lose on your home ice. To lose the way they did, 3-3, you think overtime is coming. Vegas pops one in with a second to go in regulation. Shades of the Winnipeg-St. Louis series finale, game 7, right? Vegas scoring with a second to go. Winnipeg had to tip in with Pavetti there with 1.6 seconds to go? I mean, just when you think it's over, or in this case, just when you think regulation's over and you're going to overtime, you get stunned like that. A loss like that, it's not heartbreaking. It's not unfortunate. It's stunning to lose in that fashion in hockey with a second left. Edmonton now coming out game 4. You know they're going to be pissed. You know that they're going to be on the attack, and a team that's got the offensive depth and firepower that they have. I got to take the Oilers in this game 4. I can't see road teams winning each of the first 4 games. I just can't do it. I can't see the Oilers not defending their home ice once in this first set of 2 games in Edmonton. Of course, they're would be a game 6 if the Knights got hot. Edmonton can close this thing out in 5, best case scenario for them. I think they'll have an opportunity to. I don't know if they will close it out in 5. I'd probably go Knights game 5, but I think the Oilers will have an opportunity to close it out in 5 because I'm on them game 4. Let's take it over to the NFL. We mentioned it. We teased it. Derek Carr with his sudden retirement over the weekend. And I suppose this shouldn't shock many people, right? I mean, it's not like Derek Carr is all that old, but you look at his career and the way things have gone recently, and he's been getting beat to hell and just banged up year after year. He's had concussions. He's had other injuries. And this Saints team, this Saints franchise, this Saints organization is an absolute unmitigated disaster. And you got Kellen Moore coming in, year 1, rookie head coach. And does it make sense for Derek Carr to, start over with a new head coach and a new system and a team that's ceiling felt like 5-6 wins coming into the year? It's absolutely wild to me. Because do you remember how we were talking about the Saints when cashing out first started with myself last September? Week 1, everyone was on Carolina catching the points week 1. I said, let's not forget who these Panthers are, right? Give me the Saints laying, I think it was 3.5. Saints blew them out. Week 2 against the Cowboys, another 40 spot for Derek Carr and the Saints offense. This Kubiak offense, it was like unstoppable. The Saints were 2-0, and we were talking about them, and obviously, small sample size, but after week 2, we were talking about these New Orleans Saints like, whoa, is this a team to watch out for in the NFC South, in a wide-open NFC South where obviously you had Atlanta was the favorite going into the year, odds on if you recall correctly. And I had no bet in that division, but we talked about Tampa a lot and how much I love Tampa and how I lean Tampa, and the reason I didn't bet them was I got cold feet when Atlanta made the defensive acquisitions of Judon and Simmons. And when Atlanta added those guys, I got cold feet. I said I still like Tampa, but I can't bet it because now I'm a little worried about this Atlanta defense. Well, the acquisitions meant absolutely nothing. And Tampa, despite having a losing record, I believe, 10 games into the year? Wasn't it back-to-back years? The Bucs went 4-6, still won the division. They still finished strong. They pulled it out in the end. But the Saints early in the year were grabbing our attention. Start 2-0. They had the lead in the fourth quarter against the Eagles till Philly went 2-minute drill on them. The Saints were seconds away, couple minutes away from beating the eventual Super Bowl champs and starting the year 3-0. Then the injuries start to hit, and boom, Rashid Shaheed is out. And then Olave gets hurt, and Derek Carr gets hurt, and Spencer Rattler's starting 6 games for them, and it becomes a dumpster fire. And this team is in a terrible salary cap situation, and they have seemingly nowhere positive to go. So it just makes sense for Derek Carr. Why be a part of a rebuild when you're in your mid-30s? You've been through it. You've been through some really lean years with the Raiders. Now you go to the Saints, and everything is, right now the Saints are on a 1 to 2 year plan. And I think if they play their cards right every step of the way, they can be a competitive team in 2026, but the Saints might not be competitive until 2027 at the earliest, if we're being realistic here. I'm curious what's going to happen first. I turn 30, the Saints become competitive, because we're actually entering the point in time where that could become a legitimate discussion. But you look at this team now, and Tyler Shuck is going to be their quarterback. The guy's last name is Shuck. I don't even see a C or a K at the end there. Like, what the hell are we doing in New Orleans? It really is a clown show. And Kellen Moore, if I'm him, I might be regretting not pulling a Ben Johnson and not staying with a great team one more year and waiting for a job that you really want, that's really desirable. I see nothing desirable about this New Orleans job. Look around the quarterback room. Spencer Rattler, 0-6. Jake Haener, 0-1. I saw a graphic earlier in the day that the Saints tight end room has more wins at quarterback than the QB room. Taysom Hill's got 7 wins at quarterback in his NFL career. Rattler, Haener, Tyler Shuck, it's a joke. And now we're hearing rumors that maybe Aaron Rodgers, might be interested in New Orleans. And I saw one person tweet on Twitter, and I say person because I wanted to say buffoon, that if I'm Aaron Rodgers, I'd rather play for the Saints than play for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Look, if the Steelers will have Rodgers, you jump on that. You jump on the opportunity to play for Mike Tomlin, to play with that defense that won games where Justin Fields had 150 passing yards. If you're Aaron Rodgers, you don't think twice about playing for Pittsburgh. Is your schedule going to be a little tougher? Yeah, you're going to go up against Baltimore. You're going to go up against Cincinnati as opposed to the NFC South. But I'll tell you what, the Bucs are always competitive. The Falcons are probably going to be better. And the Panthers are undoubtedly going to be better. Look at how they finished last season. So the NFC South, while it's nowhere near the AFC North, it's not a cakewalk. And I don't know if I'd want to subject myself to playing for the New Orleans Saints. Kamara is going to, miss half the season? Receiver room is in flux. The offensive line stunk a year ago, and I don't see them being a whole lot better. The Saints are an absolute disaster. And they got a win total right now that's sitting around 5.5, and you're looking at an alt market of 4.5, where it's minus $2 more than that to the over and plus $1.80 to the under. And I'm debating, do I want to be safe and go under 5.5 at minus 110? Or do I say, screw it, let's go under 4.5 at plus $1.80? Because who the hell are the Saints with this current quarterback room going to beat? Who's Tyler Shuck going to beat? Spencer Rattler didn't beat anyone. He's 0-6 as a starter. The Saints are a disaster. And drafting Tyler Shuck was idiotic. And, we can sit and go back and forth about Shedeur Sanders. And look, if he answered the FaceTime call when he's in a meeting with a coach, it's a bonehead move. But no one on this earth is going to convince me Tyler Shuck is better than Shedeur Sanders, right? The Saints handled drafting that quarterback position horrendously. And now Carr's retirement leaves them with a QB room where it's looking around. You want to do it? No. You want to do it? No. They stink. This quarterback room is full of guys who stink. Give me the under every which way I can bet it on Saints win totals this season. Folks, NBA playoffs heating up, and our partner ProfitX is offering the best odds all postseason long. Trust me, this is all I use when I'm in California. It's the best. ProfitX is a peer-to-peer sports exchange available in over 40 states. You're able to make your picks against other groups of fans rather than against the books. Exchanges guarantee you the best odds on average by 10 to 20%. Sunday night baseball, Phillies were about even odds most places on the run line. I got them plus 110 at ProfitX, and we cashed out. By the way, I've done this before too. You can even request your own odds. So download ProfitX today, use the code VSIN, VSIN, and earn up to $200 in profit cash over your first month. You guys got to try this. Up next, Nick Whalen joins us. You don't want to miss it. It's Cashing Out with Joe Ceraulo.
Welcome back to Cashing Out here on VSIN, the Sports Betting Network.
Cashing Out continues with me, Joe Ceraulo, taking you through the late hours of your Sunday night, right on into your Monday morning, wrapping up your weekend and starting your work week the best way possible. But it gets even better because we're taking you over to the Progressive Guest Line now to welcome in our friend. Catch him weekdays on Prop Points, 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern. Also check out his terrific work over at RotoWire. Nick Whalen joining us now on the Progressive Guest Line. Nick, how are you, man? How was your weekend?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Good to be back on the show. Love doing this every Sunday night. Obviously, I wish we had a better Pacers-Cavs game that we'll discuss in a little bit here, but no complaints, man. I don't know if this is showing through on the screen, but I got very sunburned this weekend doing some landscaping work at the house, playing some golf. So, hopefully the guys behind the glass can kind of, temper that a little bit. But excited to be here as always, man.
It's funny. I was wondering if my sunburn was coming through. I spent my Sunday afternoon down at Malibu. Not quite as manly as golf and landscaping, but, I drove down to the coast, and all of a sudden I was like, got to get that one initial burn to start the summer, and then the Italian genes kick in after that first burn. But we'll get to that Pacers-Cavs game. We'll get to the NBA playoffs. I know you just heard me talking about Derek Carr's retirement and the absolute disaster that is the New Orleans Saints. Nick, I got to ask you, man, what do you make of this quarterback room? Who do you think, and obviously, it's going to be open competition in the preseason. Who do you think is going to be the week one starter there? And at 5-1, would you take the Saints for fewest wins in the NFL this season?
Oh, I would think about that. That is not a market that I had explored. I was poking around the win total, which DraftKings now kind of lets you set your own number. So there's not necessarily a here's the number out there, but it's basically 5.5 if you kind of look at the market. And yeah, I think there's a world in which this is finally the year that the Saints take that big step back that we've probably felt like is coming for a while. It's a team that hasn't made the playoffs in 4 consecutive years. That is not going to change in 2025. I think they'll make that 5 in a row. And, they've been as all in as anybody, for essentially the last decade plus, and, pulling all these cap maneuvers to try to roll things over and go all in every single year. And it hasn't really paid off, right? I didn't really understand the decision to extend Alvin Kamara midway through last season. He just feels like he doesn't really fit the direction that this team is heading. And, now you're just in a world of trouble with no Derek Carr. Not that you're that excited about this team with Derek Carr, but you're left with Tyler Shuck, Spencer Rattler, and Jake Haener. That's it. I don't know if they look elsewhere, right? Are you ready to just hand it to Tyler Shuck immediately? It's like if Joe Flacco gets cut by the Cleveland Browns, do they look in that direction? Could we see some sort of bridge situation for a team that does always want to maximize in the short term? I mean, it's brutal, man. If you want to look at it from a fantasy perspective, for somebody like Chris Olave, this is a nightmare. That's really about it. It's Olave and Kamara as far as guys that you're interested in that offense. But I know Tyler Shuck is old. I know he has experience. I don't know that the sell with him was ever, okay, he's going to be ready to rock and be an even average or close to average NFL starting quarterback right away. So I think this is going to be a very, very bad team.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned Flacco potentially getting cut there, because I feel like if that was to happen, it would be weeks into the season. It wouldn't be, in the summertime. Flacco's currently neck and neck with Pickett on the odds board to take the first snap of the season for Cleveland. Pickett's plus 120. Flacco, I gave this out weeks ago at 4-1. He's now plus 130 to take the first snap. I think he's the week 1 starter in Cleveland personally. For the Saints, the odds are Tyler Shuck minus 200, Rattler plus 150, Haener 17-1. I'd probably go Spencer Rattler plus 150. There's murmurs of Aaron Rodgers, by the way. I can't see a world in which Aaron Rodgers wants to go to a team that'll finish behind the Carolina Panthers in the standings.
I don't see that either. I know that's been batted around. And look, we don't really know what Aaron Rodgers is thinking right now. But if your two options are the New Orleans Saints and the Pittsburgh Steelers, and you choose that you want to play football in 2025, I mean, to me, that is the ultimate no-brainer, right? I don't know what you'd be signing up for to play for the Saints. You have one team that's probably ready to do what they do every year and win 10 games and lose in the wild card, which if you're Aaron Rodgers, maybe you're fine with that. It's better than what happened the last 2 years with the New York Jets. But no, Rodgers doesn't seem desperate to me to want to just stick around in the NFL, and he'll just take any job available, right? Like that would be completely out of character, I think, with how this whole process has gone. So I don't think he's going to be an option necessarily for the Saints. I do like your call on Rattler just because he has experience. He started for this team before, right? We see this every year with these rookie quarterbacks, whether they're drafted in the top 5 or drafted in the second round, like Tyler Shuck. They always tell us, well, we're going to bring him along slowly, right? We're going to give as much experience watching as we can. What always happens? 2-3 weeks into the season, there's that pressure from the fan base, there's the pressure from the media, and all of a sudden that guy is out there. But I don't think there's going to be overwhelming pressure for Tyler Shuck to start immediately, right? Because of the type of prospect that he is, because of where he was drafted. I certainly think he makes several starts next season, but I think you're onto something with that Rattler call. That's not a bad one.
Yeah, something tells me the fans down there in New Orleans aren't going to be clamoring or pressuring the front office to get Tyler Shuck there in a game. I don't think jersey sales are going to be all that high for the rookie quarterback, who I think is older than me, if I'm not mistaken. Nick, let's get to Monday's NBA playoff games. My Knicks hosting Boston, Game 4. Trying to avoid going 0-2 at MSG and being tied at 2-2 going up to the other Garden. They're catching 6.5. They're 2-1 on the money line. Can the Knicks pull this one off like Indiana did?
I could see it. I could see it. Now, the question is, now that the Celtics have finally had their kind of back to normal shooting game, right? They had 23s in Game 3. Is this the start of something, or do we go back to Game 1, Game 2, Boston, where it feels like there'll be a 7 or 8 minute run where they can't miss, and then there's a 8 or 9 minute run where they can't make anything? I mean, that was really the first time in this series that I felt like the Celtics looked like the Celtics that we've come to know for the last 2 years from start to finish. But you look at the Knicks in Game 3, they were awful. Shot just 40% from the field as a team. They were bad from 3-point range. Another one of those games we've had so many of them in these playoffs, including one tonight that just felt over immediately. And obviously the Knicks have made 2 crazy comebacks already in the series. You didn't get the sense that was going to happen for a third straight night. I will say the Porzingis piece of this is I think really matters. I think Porzingis is what takes this team from a great team to a really, really great team to like one of the best rosters that we've seen in the NBA over the last decade plus. And Porzingis just not looking like himself, not being healthy, playing limited minutes off the bench. I think that is, something that the Knicks can exploit as the series goes along. We've seen Mitchell Robinson give them good minutes. Cat has come alive offensively over these last 2 games. So I won't be surprised if the Knicks hang around here. More of a stay away for me. I would lean Boston if I had to pick it. Would also lean under on the total. I mean, this series, Joe, is being played at a borderline glacial pace. Game 3 was 86 possessions per 48 minutes. 86. The 2005 Detroit Pistons, which is like the team that you think of playing slowly, they played at a faster pace than 86 possessions per 48. Wow. So I think the Knicks have at least succeeded in kind of turning this into a rock fight type of series. I think that does benefit them. Now, in terms of some props that I'm keeping an eye on, looking at Towns, over 11.5 boards, minus 135. I think it's a pretty fair price for a guy who's gone over that in 4 straight games. Drew Holiday, over 7.5 assists plus rebounds. I like that number. Blowout factor is the risk here. If you do like Boston, played just 25 minutes in game 3, but still got to 6 rebounds plus assists. And then Josh Hart, over 20.5 points plus boards. This is one I'm still batting around, but he had gone over in 5 straight prior to game 3. And again, if you think we get a competitive game 4, it could be a 41, 42, 43-minute night for him.
Yeah, Josh Hart's been sensational, so crucial to any success this team has. Look, Brunson and Towns are going to put up the points, but I mean, if I'm not mistaken, Hart was right up there among the leading scorers game 2. I believe he put up 23 in that comeback win. We'll get to the Wolves-Warriors game in just a minute, but folks, want to remind you that smarter bets start right here and they last all year long with VSiN Pro. For a limited time, we're slashing the price of our annual subscription, normally $240, now just $199. And when you sign up today, you're getting an extra 2 months free. That's 14 months VSiN Pro access for less than 50 cents a day with the promo code PRO. That includes daily best bets from our hosts and guests, exclusive splits from DraftKings and Circa, 24/7 video, plus replays on the VSiN Watch app. So go to VSiN.com/subscribe now, promo code PRO, and lock in your 14 months of VSiN Pro for just $1.99. VSIN.com/subscribe. Nick Whalen with us, co-host of Prop Points on the network, 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern on weekdays. Nick, final 75 seconds or so here, my man. Warriors, Wolves, no Steph. Is this going to be another Minnesota win in the Bay Area?
I think it is. But, man, you come out of game 3 and you're just like, all right, well, you got the result that you wanted if you're Minnesota. But the Wolves just keep making this series, I think, harder than it needs to be. I guess, credit to what Golden State has been able to throw at them defensively. But, man, I mean, the Warriors can't do anything on offense. We had another low total that's now under 200 for this game. I think I'd like to see Minnesota push the pace a little bit more as the series goes along. They didn't really get anything in transition on Saturday in game 3. I think that's an area that they can exploit. One thing that we have talked about and we talked about coming into the series was Julius Randle, and he's continued to play really well. I think you have an aggressive version of Julius Randle. You have Anthony Edwards seemingly getting some confidence back in that jump shot in game 3. I like Minnesota. The thing is, Minnesota doesn't even have to play well to win these games, Joe. You look at who Golden State is throwing out there right now. You got Jimmy Butler. He's fantastic. You have a 3-point specialist in Buddy Hield. You're starting 2 non-scorers, and you have Brandon Podziemski in the starting lineup who can't buy a basket, and you have no options off the bench. So I don't even have that much faith in Minnesota, but Golden State's going to struggle to get to 90, 95 points the rest of the series as long as Steph is out.
Nick, I'm with you, my man. More winners, more picks, more cashing out up next. Don't go anywhere. It's VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Welcome back to Cashing Out here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Cashing Out continues with myself, Joe Ceraulo, our buddy Nick Whalen from over at RotoWire, co-host of Prop Points here on the network, 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern on weekdays, with us on the Progressive Guest Line. And Nick, we left off talking Golden State, Minnesota. Things seem hopeless for the Warriors without Steph, but somehow able to hang around. That final score, I think, on Saturday looked way more competitive than the game itself was if you watched it wire to wire. And you saw at the end, it looked like Draymond Green was yelling out to his guys, telling them what the spread was at the end. It was kind of weird there. Looked like Draymond might have been discussing that. I don't know if you're in the playoffs, what covering matters to you, right? It's win or go home. But what are your thoughts on maybe some available props for this one? Ant-Man seems to be heating up. Are you targeting him, the supporting cast? What are you looking at?
Yeah, well, first of all, I don't love that Draymond was aware of that the other night, because I ended up losing a 10-1 parlay that we had going, Joe, on that Kuminga garbage time three with 5 seconds left that lost the Wolves the cover at the 5.5. Yeah, we had Buddy Hield 4+ threes. We had the under. All we needed was that thing to rim out, or maybe Draymond Green did not know what the spread was. And it is what it is, man. But that's kind of how these playoffs have gone, how the series has gone. So in terms of props that I like for Game 4, like we talked about in the last segment, this is one of those series, and I think Knicks Celtics is kind of like this as well, where you're just, there's at least one team in every game where you're like, I don't know if this team's going to score 100 points. And, as somebody who does tend to gravitate toward overs in the prop market, that does concern me a little bit. And obviously the Warriors are the team that we're concerned about here. And we talked a little bit about their lack of depth. You look at the guys that Minnesota's bringing off the bench. You look at, what OKC got out of its bench in that win over Denver on Sunday night. I don't like the starting five for the Warriors without Steph. Looney, Peyton, Moody, Quentin Post, these are your options. If you're Steve Kerr, there's just not a whole lot of firepower there. So I've been gravitating more toward the Timberwolves in the prop market. Anthony Edwards rebounding is something that we've made a lot of money on so far in these playoffs. I still think we're getting a good number. It hasn't really moved. It's at 6.5 for Game 4. I know he had only 4 rebounds the other night, but he had gone over this number in 6 of his previous 7 games. I also don't mind if you want to get away from the rebounds. Specifically, you can go over 10.5 assists plus rebounds. A little bit less value there at -145. That rebounding one is at plus money. Also like Anthony Edwards to lead this game in scoring for another plus money prop at +125. It feels like Jimmy Butler's like really the only threat for the Warriors. And, the Timberwolves have had these games here and there where Jaden McDaniels will go off, or, Julius Randle's playing well, but I think getting Edwards at plus money for that is a pretty good deal. Also, we'll look at a Rudy Gobert double-double at +220. The rebounds have been there for Gobert, even though he's playing 25, 26 minutes. He's been a point short of a double-double in both Game 1 and Game 3. So I think if we just see a little bit more of Gobert, maybe that is a card that Chris Finch wants to play a bit more to give the Warriors another wrinkle. And then if you want something on the Warriors side, you got another one at plus money here. Buddy Hield over 3.5 threes, +124. I'm not saying I love it, but the Warriors absolutely need Buddy Hield to come through offensively if they have any shot of hanging around in this game. I mean, it really kind of feels right now like it's a two-man team offensively with him and Butler, and that is not a good thing when Buddy Hield is that second option.
Yeah, I might love that Buddy Hield play more than you, because I was talking about this coming into the playoffs. How, I don't know if you recall, but the play-in game against Memphis and then Game 1 against Houston, Steph and Jimmy accounted for 59% or more of their scoring in each of those 2 games. Right. And I was like, look, Buddy Hield's going to have to wake up. Eventually, Steph and Jimmy are not going to be able to carry them offensively the entire postseason. And Hield has woken up the last few games. Didn't have the best Game 3. But, yeah, I think Buddy Hield over 3.5 threes coming off a couple of slow games this series. I think it's a pretty good play. I like that a lot at that value, +125. This is a guy who can, he's gone 9 of 11 from deep. What was that, Game 7 against Houston? He did that. So, 4 threes, that's something he's done a few times this postseason. I like that play a lot. How about Indiana-Cleveland on Tuesday? We look ahead. If I'm not mistaken, the Cavs were initially 8-point favorites. That number has come quickly down to Indiana catching 6.5 in Cleveland. We've seen a lot of the zigzag effect this postseason, right? Cavs 20-point win Friday night, Indiana on Sunday, a 20-point win of their own. So do you think things shift? They go back to Cleveland, Game 5, backs against the wall like they were Friday, down 2-0, and the Cavs respond in a big way, or do you think Indiana hangs around?
Right now, I would take Indiana with the 6.5, and I wouldn't think twice about it, to be honest. I'm sure you talked about Donovan Mitchell, who didn't play in the second half. Obviously, the game was completely out of hand, but then we see this video of Mitchell warming up, essentially coming out of halftime, and something happened with his ankle. I don't know what it was, but it looked like a pretty normal basketball movement, and he was not out there. They're already saying he's going to get an MRI in advance of Game 5. If Donovan Mitchell has a chance to play, he's going to push through this because they're down 3-1 in the series, and it's an ultimate backs against the wall moment. But there's a real chance Donovan Mitchell doesn't play. There's a real chance that if he does play, we can now add him to that list of guys who are less than 100% for the Cavs in this series. I think Evan Mobley has looked okay to me physically these last 2 games, but DeAndre Hunter is playing through a torn ligament in his thumb. That's clearly affecting him. Darius Garland does not look like himself, and look, I'm just coming around on this Pacers team, man. I was skeptical. I thought Milwaukee would give them a better series than they did. Obviously, the Dame injury, kind of gives Milwaukee the out there, but I don't think the Bucks, certainly didn't feel like they were winning that series regardless. And Indiana, to me, you could make the case that they have been maybe the most consistent team so far throughout the playoffs. We've seen even teams like Boston and OKC, to me, the two best teams in the NBA, they've had a few no-show games offensively. And really, for the most part, the Pacers have avoided that. And, in these games where they have started slowly, they find a way to climb their way back in. So if you're telling me that Evan Mobley's probably not still 100%, Darius Garland not 100%, DeAndre Hunter not 100%, and we don't even know if Donovan Mitchell is going to play, I know Indiana is coming off of what felt like a near perfect game on Sunday night, especially a near perfect, first half where they shoot 60%, they go 12 of 18 from three. Yeah, that's going to regress, but I don't know, man. This Cavs team, to me, they feel kind of cooked. You can't come out and have that kind of performance in a must-win game in Game 4 and then just expect to go home and flip that switch.
Yeah, it feels like every strength that Cleveland has, except maybe post-play, it feels like Indiana is outperforming them, right? Cleveland, we talked about their depth and the way that they've got so many scorers coming off the bench, and Hunter and Jerome. And I mean, Indiana's bench has outplayed them significantly this series. So it just feels like every strength that we'd point to Cleveland for, the Pacers, they're so much more well-rounded. It is Cleveland's relying so heavily on Donovan Mitchell, and there's no chance whether he plays or not, he's 100% for Game 5. So it's pretty alarming. It is officially time to panic for Cavs fans.
100%. I think it is. And you have to start thinking about the future too, if you're Cleveland. I mean, I'm not saying this series is over. If Donovan Mitchell, if this does turn out to be more of a scare than anything else, and they can win Game 5 and all of a sudden the pressure's back on Indy to close it out at home. Yeah, we're not just completely writing the obituary here, right? But I did not think that this was going to feel like a 2015 Atlanta Hawks situation. That team back in the day that won 60 plus games and turned out to be a complete fraud. Like I don't feel like we're in that territory with the Cavs. I think, the injuries do give them an out here, but man, they were so dominant during the regular season. And, it's not a team that was led by Paul Millsap and Jeff Teague and, Al Horford, guys like that. So you have a true top 10 guy in Donovan Mitchell. You have the defensive player of the year in Evan Mobley. You have one of the best coaches in the NBA. You have another all-star in Darius Garland, but they're going to have to do some soul searching if this series does end and Indy does advance to the conference finals. There's not a whole lot of maneuvering to me as far as what they can do this summer. They're almost certainly going to lose Ty Jerome. Somebody will sign him away on a much richer contract. You can make some tweaks here and there. Maybe you explore trying to upgrade, that number 2 scorer spot. Could you dangle Darius Garland to get something better? Maybe, but there aren't a ton of options out there for the Cavaliers. And if this series does end in the next few days here, I think this is going to go down as probably the biggest disappointment that we've seen so far in the playoffs.
No doubt about that. Nick, 1 seed struggling in the West a little bit too. OKC Denver. Last Sunday, I gave out Nuggets plus 2.5 games on the series. That's already a lock. It was plus 115.
Oh, yeah.
What are your thoughts on this one? I think we're going 7 here. I'm going to say the home team wins each of the next 3. But I'm curious, final 90 seconds, what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I wouldn't obviously bet OKC to win the series right now. Minus 575 is just kind of an outrageous price and one that I feel is a little bit too low. I think that's a little bit disrespectful to the Nuggets. But yeah, OKC at plus 190 to win the series in 7. I think that makes a lot of sense. But you can get Denver to win in 7 at 9-1. I might throw a little bit down on that. You go to a Game 7. I don't care if it's in OKC. I would consider that, basically a toss-up game, even with Jokic, struggling these last few games, 3 straight games under 40% shooting. The Nuggets are still finding ways to hang around. But man, you look at Sunday's game, that was the definition of a rock fight. My goodness, man. I mean, I thought Chet Holmgren actually said something really prescient, after the first quarter. He's like, it actually feels like a back-to-back, right? We played this overtime game at night 2 days ago. Now we turn around and play a day game. And man, it looked like it. I mean, that was the worst combined field goal percentage we've seen in a playoff game between two teams in 21 years. Denver had 8 points, 14 minutes into the game. And honestly, it feels like a big missed opportunity for both teams. I know OKC, of course, came away with the win, but with both teams shooting that poorly, I think both sides essentially kind of look around and say, man, we had a chance here. If we just played average basketball to run away with this game.
Yep. Nick, I couldn't agree with you more, my man. As always, appreciate the time. It's always a blast when you come on. Thanks so much for joining us.
I appreciate it, brother. Have a good rest of the show.
Make sure you catch him on Prop Points Monday through Friday, 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern. Our buddy Nick Whalen from over at RotoWire. Up next, more Cashing Out with me, Joe Ceraulo. Don't go anywhere.